The day of the wedding dawned gently, the first rays of sunlight streaming through the bedroom window like golden whispers. Outside, the sky was painted in soft hues of pink and orange, the kind of morning that seemed to bless whatever plans you had. Birds chirped in quiet harmony, and the world seemed, for a fleeting moment, to be at peace. I woke up before the alarm, not because of excitement, but because my heart wouldn't let me sleep. It fluttered in my chest like a nervous bird, uncertain whether it was trapped or preparing to soar. I turned to the side of the bed that was empty, had always been empty since my son was born. The last few years had been a journey of struggle, growth, and fierce independence. My son Tyler had been my anchor through storms, my joy on dark days, my reason to keep moving when everything inside me felt like giving up. When his father left us, disappearing like a shadow at sunset, I made myself a promise. I would never let anyone make my child feel unwanted again. And now, here I was, about to marry Ryan. A man who had walked into our lives with polished shoes, a charming smile, and words that made me feel seen again. He said all the right things. He listened. He helped. He included Tyler in everything. For a long time, I thought I had finally found someone who understood the delicate balance of loving a mother and loving her child. Maybe I was just too ready to believe in happy endings. I slipped out of bed and tiptoed into Tyler's room. He was curled up, hugging his favorite stuffed lion, one leg dangling over the side of the mattress. I sat on the edge of his bed, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. He stirred, blinked up at me, and smiled. "Is it today?" he whispered. "Yes, baby," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's today." He sat up, yawning, dramatically, and stretched his arms out for a hug. I held him close, taking in the smell of his hair and the warmth of his tiny arms. For a 6-year-old, Tyler was unusually observant. He noticed things others didn't. He asked questions that went far beyond his age. And when I'd told him I was getting married, he'd asked me only one thing. Will he love me like I'm his? I'd said yes. I'd meant it. I believed it. The house was soon alive with activity. My best friend, Claire, arrived to help me get ready, bringing with her a flurry of makeup bags, hair tools, and excited energy. Tyler watched in fascination. As my hair was curled, my face transformed with brushes and powders. He sat on a stool by the mirror, swinging his legs and humming. Every so often, he'd flash me a grin and say, "You're going to be the most beautiful mommy ever." By noon, the car arrived to take us to the venue. A quaint little garden estate nestled just outside the city. It had been my dream spot. Intimate, romantic, surrounded by nature. Ryan had insisted on covering the cost, brushing off my hesitations with a smile. "This is our beginning," he'd said. "It should be perfect." As we drove, Tyler leaned against me, watching the trees rush by outside. I held his small hand in mine, my thoughts spinning faster than the wheels beneath us. I wanted so badly for this to be the start of something new, something safe and full of love. For both of us. I told myself that this was the right decision. That people grow into love. That families don't come pre-made. They're built with patience and time. The venue was bustling with energy when we arrived. Guests were beginning to fill the garden seats, florists were adjusting final touches, and music floated lightly from hidden speakers. Claire whisked Tyler away to get dressed in his little tuxedo while I was taken to the bridal suite. As I stepped into my gown, a hush fell over the room. Even Claire, who had seen me at my worst, placed a hand over her heart and said, "You look like a dream." But I didn't feel like a dream. I felt like a storm cloud hiding behind a blue sky. Something didn't feel quite right. I'd been so consumed with planning the event, calming Tyler's nerves, and ignoring the subtle shifts in Ryan's demeanor the past few weeks that I hadn't taken time to listen to my own instincts. There were moments, quiet ones, where Ryan's smile had seemed too forced, his patience with Tyler too thin, his affection toward me a little too rehearsed. But I had brushed those thoughts aside. After all, we were planning a wedding. Stress could explain anything. Then came the moment to walk down the aisle. The music changed, signaling my cue. I stood at the edge of the garden, the path before, me lined with rose petals and smiling faces, and there at the altar stood Ryan. He looked sharp in his suit, his hands clasped in front of him. Tyler stood just ahead of me, ring-bearer pillow in hand, eyes sparkling with pride. As he started down the aisle, I noticed something. Ryan didn't smile at him. Not really. Just a quick nod. A flicker of impatience crossed his face when Tyler adjusted his grip on the pillow. Again, I told myself I was imagining things. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Every eye turned to me, but I only looked at Tyler. He smiled up at me as I passed him, and that one look grounded me. I reached the altar, took Ryan's hand, and the officiant began the ceremony. The words blurred in my mind, a mix of vowels and consonants drowned by my heartbeat. I remember the vows. I remember Ryan's voice, steady and clear. I remember repeating after the officiant, saying, "I do," and watching the ring slide onto my finger. There was a kiss, applause, and the flash of 100 cameras. Just like that, I was a wife. Tyler clapped the loudest. The reception was held in the same garden, tables adorned with candles and flower arrangements. Laughter echoed through the air, clinking glasses and rustling fabric. Tyler danced with Claire, spinning around with unfiltered joy. He was the only child among a sea of adults, but no one seemed to mind. Except Ryan. I caught him watching Tyler a few times, eyes narrowed, lips tight. He said nothing, but the look was unmistakable. Displeasure, discomfort, something cold. I told myself again to stop overanalyzing. He's tired. It's been a long day. But the moment that shattered everything came fast, sudden, and merciless. Tyler had gone to grab some fruit punch from the drinks table. His tiny hands struggled with the cup, and a little of the red liquid spilled onto the white floor near the cake table. A harmless mistake. He looked up, guilty but not frightened, until Ryan walked over. Before I could react, before I could move, Ryan's hand flew. A slap across Tyler's cheek, sharp and loud, the kind of sound that silences a room. Gasps erupted. Music stopped. Conversations died. Tyler's eyes widened in shock. His lip trembled. Then came the words, "You're such a nuisance." Everything inside me broke. We drove in silence, the hum of the engine the only sound inside the car. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles had turned white. Tyler sat in the back seat, clutching his stuffed lion, his face pressed against the window. He hadn't said a word since we left the wedding reception, and that silence cut deeper than any scream ever could. I kept glancing at him through the rearview mirror, my chest tightening every time I saw the faint red mark still lingering on his cheek. The moment we got home, I walked him to his room and helped him out of his tiny tuxedo. His movements were slow, stiff. I tried to speak, to explain, to comfort, but my throat felt thick, as if the words couldn't pass through the storm inside me. Tyler crawled under the covers without a word. He didn't ask for a story. He didn't ask where Ryan was. He just lay there staring at the wall. I sat beside him, brushing his hair back gently, guilt and rage warring in my chest. This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, and it had become a memory I would spend years trying to erase from both our minds. After he fell asleep, I sat in the living room, still in my wedding dress, surrounded by silence and shadows. I hadn't even taken off my makeup. My reflection in the dark TV screen looked like a stranger, a woman dressed in white, but hollowed out by pain. My phone buzzed. Ryan. I stared at the name on the screen until it went dark again. He called 4 more times that night. I didn't answer. He left messages, each one more desperate than the last. "It was a mistake," he said. "I lost my temper. It wasn't that bad. He just spilled a drink." The way he minimized it made something inside me snap. He didn't understand. He didn't want to understand. The next morning, there were flowers at my door, a big, overpriced bouquet with a note that read, "Let's talk." I left them outside to wilt. Tyler was still quiet, but he clung to me more than usual. He followed me from room to room, never letting go of my hand for long. When I tried to make him breakfast, he sat at the kitchen table, his eyes fixed on the front door like he was waiting for someone to burst through it. I bent down beside him, trying to keep my voice soft. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" He shook his head. "Do you want me to make him go away forever?" He nodded. That was the only answer I needed, but the world didn't let me move on quietly. Word of the wedding spread fast, through whispers, social media, phone calls. Some guests reached out to ask if I was okay. Others, more concerned with appearances than reality, suggested maybe I should just give Ryan another chance. "It's stressful being a stepdad," one woman said. "He probably just cracked under pressure." But stress doesn't justify cruelty, and no pressure gives a man the right to hit a child. A week passed. Then 2. Ryan kept trying. Texts, emails, even letters slid under my door. Each one was filled with apologies and excuses. He'd started therapy, he said. He was reading books about parenting. He wanted to prove he could be better. For me. For Tyler. Part of me wanted to believe him. That's the twisted thing about emotional wounds. They make you question yourself. Had I been too harsh? Was I overprotective? Could one mistake really undo everything? But then I'd look at Tyler, and I'd remember how small and helpless he looked in that moment, how he didn't cry until he saw the look on my face. He had trusted Ryan, and Ryan had broken something that couldn't be fixed with flowers or promises. I agreed to meet Ryan in public, at a park, with people around, just to talk. Claire watched Tyler for the afternoon. I needed to do this alone. When I saw Ryan waiting on a bench, his hands buried deep in his coat pockets, something in me recoiled. His smile was strained, his posture uncertain. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. I didn't respond. "I know I messed up. I know I scared you, and Tyler. But I've been working on myself. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy." I kept my voice calm. You don't hit a child and then get to call it a one-time mistake. It's who you were in that moment that matters. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I was angry. You were so focused on him. Everything was about him. I felt invisible." There it was. The truth. It was never about the spilled drink, it was about jealousy. About a grown man who couldn't handle sharing love with a 6-year-old. I stood up. "If you felt invisible, that's your problem, not his. You don't get to punish a child because you're insecure." He stood too, trying to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. "We're done," I said. "I'm having the marriage annulled. I want nothing from you. I don't want you near my son, ever." His face twisted with anger. "So that's it? You're just going to throw me away?" "You made that decision when you put your hand on my child," I replied. "You just didn't know it yet." I walked away, my heart pounding. I didn't look back. Time didn't heal everything, but it did give me room to breathe. Months passed since the wedding, since the slap, the silence, the confrontation at the park. I filed for an annulment, and the legal system, surprisingly swift in its decision, erased the marriage like it had never happened. But the memories lingered. They clung to the corners of our home, to Tyler's widened eyes whenever a stranger raised their voice. to the way he tensed whenever someone got too close too fast. Love may be resilient, but fear had sharp teeth. I learned that while trying to teach my son how to feel safe again. We'd moved out of the apartment. It wasn't just about space, it was about a fresh start. I found a small house on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it had a fenced backyard, big windows, and a sunroom where Tyler could play with his toys without shadows creeping into his joy. I painted his room sky blue and filled it with stars that glowed when the lights went out. Every decision, every choice was made with him in mind. My love for him had always been fierce, but now it had become even more intentional, protective, relentless. He started therapy, not because I wanted to label him, but because I wanted him to have someone who could help him process the things I couldn't see. And slowly, he opened up. He drew pictures. He talked about the wedding, about Ryan, about how, for a little while, he thought it was his fault. That broke me. I cried in my bedroom that night, silently, so he wouldn't hear. I cried not just for the pain he had endured, but for the fact that even at 6 years old, he had carried guilt that belonged to someone else. I made another promise to myself that night. I would never again ignore my instincts. I would never, again, silence that inner voice, the one that had whispered warnings even when I'd wanted to believe in fairy tales. Claire remained by our side. She was more than just a friend, she was family. She helped with school pickups, brought over dinner, when I was too tired to cook, and made Tyler laugh with her ridiculous sock puppet voices. Some nights, she'd bring wine and sit with me on the back porch while Tyler slept. We'd talk about everything and nothing, about how life was messy and beautiful and brutally unfair. She never pushed me to date again, never asked when I'd start looking. She knew better, because trust wasn't a switch I could flip. It had to be rebuilt, from the ground up. Still, life, as it does, moved forward. Tyler made new friends at school. He started learning the piano, fingers dancing hesitantly, across the keys. I got a promotion at work, and with it, a sense of financial security I hadn't felt in years. Little by little, our days filled with laughter again. Not because we forgot what happened, but because we refused to let it define us. And then, one afternoon, everything changed again. It was a Thursday. I'd just picked up Tyler from school, and we stopped by the grocery store. While I browsed through produce, he wandered a few feet away to look at a display of magazines. I kept my eyes on him, as I always did. But suddenly he froze. He turned, eyes wide, and walked quickly back to me. "Mommy," he whispered, tugging at my sleeve. "He's here." I looked up, heart pounding. "Who?" He pointed, subtle but trembling. "Him. Ryan." I turned my head, and there he was, standing near the bakery aisle, a loaf of bread in one hand, scanning the shelves like any ordinary man. But he wasn't ordinary, not to us, and certainly not to Tyler. He hadn't seen us yet. I pulled Tyler, close, wrapping my arm around him. My instincts screamed to leave, but something in me stopped. I wasn't that same woman from the wedding. I had been through fire, and I had walked out stronger. He noticed us then. His eyes widened. He took a hesitant step forward. I could see the apology on his lips before he even spoke. "I didn't know you shopped here," he said, his voice cautious, trying to sound casual. I said nothing. Tyler buried his face in my side. "I've changed," Ryan added, glancing at him, then back at me. "I just wanted to say that. You said everything you needed to when you hit him," I said, my voice calm but sharp. He nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. I live with it every day. I hoped you'd be able to see who I am now." I looked at my son, who clung to me like a lifeline. Then I looked back at Ryan. "I see exactly who you are. And more importantly, he remembers who you were." I walked away,